Hello, fellow Daz Studio enthusiasts. This is Not From This World, and I want to welcome you to another Daz tutorial. Now, this week, I am interested in running a little more tests with our render settings. Before, I tried to show you the differences in render quality if we bumped the render settings up. And especially here, if we go to the render quality, I was bumping it up from 1 to 3 to 5. Now, today I want to start dropping it down to see when we actually see a major difference in the render. So I've got a set here that I've used before. It's just got Milika and her little sister Bilyana. And we're just going to run some renders at different qualities to see what's going to happen. So we're going to start with render quality 1. And I'm just going to render this box here so it doesn't take too much time. But, you know, the set has a living room in it, 2 characters, a background. So let's see how long it will take to render up a scene at quality 1. Okay, so that render took about 9 minutes and 5 seconds. And we'll call this our base render at quality number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now I'm going to go to my render settings and let's drop down our render quality to 0.8. We're going to go down in quality 0.2 each time. So let's try 0.8 render quality. We'll see how long this takes to render, and we'll compare the 2 pictures. And right away, I don't see much of a difference between render quality 1 and render quality 0.8. You know, I like this render as a test because there's some reflection in the windows. Our main characters are lit up really well. And I'd say right now that 0.8 is really holding up. Let's drop this down to 0.6. So I'm going to take my render quality, drop it down to 0.6. And let's run a third render here. Okay, so this one is finished at 0.6. So let's save it. Now let's do 0.4. Okay, so that was at 0.4. We're going to save this one. And finally, let's go down to render quality 0.2. Okay, so that takes care of our last render. We're going to save this and then let's look at the results. Okay, so I just threw these 5 renders into Paint and kind of put them together. So on the far left, we've got a render quality 1, and then I keep going down to 0.2. The render times dropped significantly as we lowered the render quality. My quality number 1 took 9 minutes and 5 seconds, and then the render quality at 0.2 only took 2 minutes and 12 seconds. You know, I'm kind of impressed with this as we zoom in a little bit. Let's look at some of the quality here. Let's move over to quality 1, which is what I usually render at, is render quality 1. And if we compare render quality 1 to 0.8, I'm not seeing much of a difference. They look pretty good. We did have a minute 45 difference in render time, and I'd say that your render quality at 0.08 really holds up. At 0.06, which is the one on the right, I'm seeing perhaps a little bit of quality drop at 0.6 if we look at some of these details. But again, I think 0.6 really does hold up surprisingly well. I didn't notice a lot of difference in the reflection and the quality of Milica's skin. Now, as we keep dropping down a little bit more, render quality 0.4 also surprisingly holds up. I'm starting to see some chatter in the background that was not in some of the previous ones, but 0.4 actually surprisingly worked out pretty well. Now, 0.2, we start seeing quite a bit of drop off. I don't know if you can see it, but the render quality has significantly gone down, especially in the background, and I'm starting to see it in my characters. So what do I recommend? Well, I guess this just depends on what you think you need to do. If you are going to blur your background and have a distance shot, I'd say lowering to quality 0.8 or even 0.6 could be adequate, and it could help you out. But I still think I would recommend the quality 1. We're just getting a better render. Now remember, in my previous video, I upped the quality to 3 and 5, and I didn't really see a whole lot of difference, except for a huge amount of extra time. In this little study, I am seeing a slight drop off between the render in the render qualities, but we're knocking a minute 40 or so off of each render, and we're not dropping that quality all that much until we get to 0.4 and 0.2. So it's really up to you. I just thought I'd present some of this data for you just because it's interesting. And I think for me personally, I will probably stick with at minimum of quality 1, especially for close-up scenes. I didn't render like Milica's face here. Maybe that would be an interesting little test, but in this kind of full body pose, I really think some of these lower quality renders hold up pretty well, especially if you're going to do something like blur the background. You know, what's interesting is we can see, you know, kind of that gradual chatter, you know, all those snowflakes coming out as the quality gets lower. Well, I mean, that's really all I have for today. Still suffering from allergies, and so I thought this would be a good tutorial to make just to kind of show you some render quality differences. One last note, I kept everything else at default or the same. I just upped the time to make sure I had enough time, and I upped my iRay samples just so I could make sure that the render wouldn't quit before it should. But other than that, everything else was set the same for this. I did restart Daz a couple times because I wanted to keep the GPU running. So between each renders, I went ahead and reset Daz Studio just to make sure that everything was as fast as it could be. So this is my results. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and please subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you a part of my team. Until next time, have a wonderful day.